She thinks she can be the star just because she got one stupid lead role. Let's see if anyone still looks at her after today when they see her head. My younger sister Vanilla hissed that in the elementary school hallway. 8 months later, in the principal's office packed with parents, Vanilla's hands shook so badly she couldn't even hold the paper. As always, before we dive into a story with an ending that's going to feel really satisfying for you, let's do a quick roll call. Type present and the city you're watching from in the comments. For everyone who has liked and subscribed, I pray that Allah makes your problems easier, widens your provision, and keeps your body healthy. Thank you, my friends. Now, listen carefully to my story. My name is Vanice, and when all of this started, I honestly thought my biggest problem was just paying the bills on time as a single mom. I live in a small town where everybody knows which kid sings off-key at the school concert and which parent always forgets the bake sale. After my divorce from Jesse, I moved back into my old neighborhood so I could be closer to my family. My mom, my younger sister Vanilla, and her daughter. I told myself it would be temporary until I got more stable, but you know how that goes. Temporary has a way of turning into years. My daughter Valline was 9 at the time. She has this soft brown hair that used to fall just below her shoulders, and big curious eyes that always look like she's about to ask a question. She loves stories, singing, and anything that has to do with being on stage. She's the kind of kid who sings while brushing her teeth. Vanilla has a daughter too, my niece. Her name is Bella. Bella and Valline are only 6 months apart, and everyone used to call them the twins when they were younger. But as they grew older, their differences started to show. Where Valline is more gentle and sensitive, Bella is louder, more competitive, always wanting to win, to be the best at everything. Growing up, Vanilla and I were exactly like that too. I was the good girl, the one who followed rules, got good grades, tried to make everyone happy. Vanilla was the rebel, the one who slammed doors and said whatever she wanted. Mom used to say, Vanice is my calm, Vanilla is my storm. I used to laugh when she said that. I don't laugh about it anymore. After my divorce, I depended on them more than I wanted to admit. My job at a small insurance office didn't pay much, and I worked long hours. Mom watched Valline after school. Sometimes Vanilla picked her up, especially on days when Bella had after-school activities at the same time. I was grateful. I really was. I didn't see the red flags at first. The first odd vibe came the day the school announced they were going to do a big spring play. It was all my daughter could talk about for weeks. At dinner one night, she was practically glowing while explaining the audition process. I want the main role, Mom, she said, eyes shining. Ms. Taylor said I have a strong voice. Vanilla gave a small snort and shook her head. Don't fill her head with nonsense, Vanice. Lead roles go to kids with the right look and the right confidence, not shy little girls who cry when they lose a board game. I felt my chest tighten, but I forced a smile at my daughter. You try your best, okay? Whatever role you get, I'll be proud of you. Vanilla leaned back in her chair, smirk playing on her lips. We'll see what happens when Bella auditions. She was born to be on stage. Mom didn't say anything. She just kept stirring her soup, her eyes flicking between us in that tired way I'd gotten used to. It was a small moment, just a few sentences over dinner, but something about the way Vanilla's words bit into my daughter's confidence made a small alarm ring in the back of my mind. I told myself I was overthinking it. I told myself we were just two sisters being competitive, like always. I had no idea that this little rivalry over a school play would turn into something cruel enough to change my daughter's life, and mine, in a way I can never forget. The day the cast list was posted, my phone buzzed non-stop. I was at my desk at the office, trying to finish a report before lunch when my screen lit up with a message from Valline. Mom, I got the lead. Growing heart. A second later, another message. I'm playing the main character. Ms. Taylor said I was amazing. I smiled so wide my cheeks hurt. My eyes teared up a little, and I had to blink a few times so my coworkers wouldn't think I was losing it over an email. I texted back, I'm so proud of you, honey. We'll celebrate tonight, okay? Right after that, a different message popped up in the family group chat. Vanilla had sent a picture of the cast list, zoomed in on Bella's name. So Bella got supporting role, she wrote. Not surprised, she lights up the stage anyway. I scrolled up and saw it. My daughter's name at the top, in big letters, next to lead role. For a second, all I felt was excitement. Then I saw what followed. Congrats, I guess, Vanilla added in another message. But these things are political anyway. Some teachers just have favorites. Be nice, Vanilla, Mom replied with a weak smile emoji. Both girls did well. I'm proud of them. I tried to keep the mood positive. Let's all have dinner at my place on Saturday and celebrate the girls together, I typed. They both worked hard. Vanilla didn't respond. That Saturday, the air in my tiny living room felt heavier than usual. I'd cooked pasta and garlic bread, and I'd even bought a small cake with "Congrats, girls" written in pink icing. Bella plopped down on the couch, scrolling on her phone, while Valline nervously smoothed the front of her dress, looking at me every few seconds for reassurance. Vanilla walked in last, perfume clouding the doorway before she even appeared. She gave me a quick hug, stiff and perfunctory, then went straight to Bella and kissed the top of her head. My star, she said loudly. Even if you're not the lead, you're still the only one who really has stage presence. Bella smiled, but it was quick and tight. She didn't look at my daughter. We all sat down for dinner, and I tried to start a normal conversation about rehearsals and costumes. So what did Ms. Taylor say about the outfits? I asked, glancing at both girls. She said I have to wear this super cute dress and a sparkling hairband, Bella said, brightening a little. I get to enter from the side of the stage with a spotlight. And you, honey? I asked my daughter gently. Before she could answer, Vanilla cut in. Oh, her role is more serious, isn't it? The main character doesn't need all the glitter, I suppose. It's okay, my daughter said quickly. I get a long monologue at the end. And a special costume too. We're still talking about the hair and makeup. Vanilla's eyes slid over to the long brown hair falling over my daughter's shoulders. She stared at it for a little too long, then gave a small laugh that didn't reach her eyes. Well, sometimes to truly become a character, you have to sacrifice something, she said, her gaze still on that hair. Real performers know that. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. What's that supposed to mean? I asked lightly, trying not to sound too defensive. Vanilla shrugged. Nothing. I'm just saying if you want to stand out, you have to be willing to do more than other people. I could feel my daughter shrinking in her seat, shoulders hunching just a little. She glanced at me with that question in her eyes. Am I good enough? Am I really allowed to be happy about this? After dinner, when Mom was in the kitchen washing dishes and Vanilla was scrolling through her phone, I found my daughter alone in her room. Hey, I said softly, sitting on the edge of her bed. You okay? She nodded, but her eyes were shiny. Do you think Bella's mad at me? I exhaled slowly. This isn't your fault, honey. You auditioned, you worked hard, and you got the role. That's it. You're allowed to be proud. You're allowed to be happy. She leaned into me, resting her head on my shoulder. I just don't want anyone to hate me because of it. I stroked her hair, feeling that same small alarm ringing in the back of my mind again. Something about the way Vanilla kept looking at her, the way she kept mentioning sacrifice and real performers, made my skin crawl. I kissed the top of my daughter's head and whispered, "Nobody is going to hurt you over a school play." I meant it when I said it. But days later, I would wish I had taken that uneasy feeling much more seriously. Rehearsals started, and life got busier. Every afternoon, my phone would buzz with messages from my daughter about lines, songs, and stage directions. She'd send me pictures of her standing on the stage, hands spread out dramatically, or videos of her practicing her monologue in the living room. She looked alive in a way I hadn't seen since before the divorce. At the same time, Messages from Vanilla took on a slightly sharper tone. "You were late again for pickup," she texted one Tuesday. Ms. Taylor looked annoyed. "Good thing I was there." I blinked at the screen, confused. I had arranged with Mom to pick up the girls that day. When I called Mom, she sighed. "Vanilla was already there for Bella," she said. "So she just grabbed Valline too. She said it was no big deal." Another day, I got a message from Ms. Taylor herself. "Hi, this is about the costume and hair for the main role," she wrote. "Could you please confirm what you're comfortable with? Your sister mentioned you were okay with something more drastic for authenticity, but I prefer to hear it from you directly." My heart dropped. I immediately called the school. "Hi, this is Vanice, Valine's mom," I said. "I got your message. I'm confused. What did my sister say exactly?" On the other end of the line, Ms. Taylor sounded polite but cautious. "She said you were open to a bold transformation for the character. Something that would make your daughter stand out more dramatically." I wanted to clarify because it sounded significant. I swallowed hard. "No, I never said that. I didn't even know that was being discussed." "I see," Ms. Taylor replied slowly. "Thank you for telling me. For now, we'll just keep things simple. Light makeup, maybe some styling, but nothing drastic, okay?" "Thank you," I said, my fingers going cold around the phone. That evening, I confronted Vanilla in Mom's living room while the girls were in the kitchen grabbing snacks. "Why did you tell Ms. Taylor I agreed to some bold transformation for my kid?" I asked, keeping my voice low. Vanilla didn't even look up from her phone. "Oh, that. Relax. I was just brainstorming. You're so tense these days." "Tense?" I repeated. "You almost convinced the teacher I wanted something extreme for her. She's 9, Vanilla." She finally looked at me, eyes flat. "She's the lead, isn't she? Don't you want her to really own the role? Or do you just want her to be a boring little cardboard cutout on stage?" "That's not the point," I said. "You can't speak for me like that. I'm her mother." Vanilla's lips curled slightly. "Yeah, and I'm the aunt who actually shows up on time. Maybe the teacher trusts me more because I'm the one she actually sees." The words stung more than I wanted to admit. I'd been late a few times, yes, but I was trying. I worked. I rushed. I did everything I could. "Don't ever tell the school you have my permission for anything without asking me first," I said quietly. "I mean it, Vanilla." She rolled her eyes. "You're overreacting. As usual." I stormed out, but even as I reached the front door, my phone buzzed again. It was an email notification from the school portal. I opened it and saw a message: "Parent/guardian consent form received for hair/makeup changes for main character." There was a scanned attachment. My fingers trembled as I opened the file. At the bottom of the form, under parent/guardian signature, was my name, my full legal name, and a signature that looked almost exactly like mine. Almost. A little too neat. A little too perfect. I stared at that fake version of my own handwriting, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. Then I hit print. At home that night, when my daughter finally fell asleep, I put the printed form into a folder, slipped it into the back of my bedroom closet, and sat on the floor beside it for a long time. I told myself I was just being cautious. I didn't realize I had just tucked away the first piece of proof that would later expose exactly how far my own sister was willing to go. From that week on, the gaslighting started to feel less like a drizzle and more like a steady, cold rain I couldn't get away from. If I questioned anything, I was suddenly dramatic. If I tried to set a boundary, I was ungrateful. If I showed any emotion at all, I was too sensitive. One afternoon, I arrived at Mom's house to pick up my daughter and heard Vanilla's voice through the half-open kitchen door. "I know it's hard for you at home," she was saying to my daughter in a low, gentle tone. "Your mom is just under a lot of stress. She's always tired, always snapping. But don't worry, Auntie is here, okay? I'll make sure everything goes well with the play. My daughter's small voice replied, Mom's not mean. She's just tired. Sure, Vanilla said, the word dripping with doubt. But you can always tell me if things feel too heavy. I'll protect you. You know that, right? I froze in the hallway, my hand tightening around the strap of my bag. When I stepped into the kitchen, Vanilla smiled sweetly. Oh hey. We were just talking about the rehearsal schedule. I told her I'd help run through her lines tonight. My daughter looked guilty, like she'd been caught doing something wrong, even though she hadn't done anything. Hi, Mom, she said softly. On the drive home, she was quiet. I decided to ask. What were you and Aunt Vanilla talking about? I asked, keeping my voice light. Nothing, she mumbled. Then, after a pause, she just said you're really busy, and that sometimes you forget things, so she'll help. I exhaled slowly, feeling the anger coil in my chest. Do you think I forget you? I asked. She glanced at me, eyes wide. No. I know you love me. That's not what I asked, I said gently. Do you feel like I forget you? No, she said again, but this time her voice wavered. I don't want anyone to be mad at me. I want to make you proud. And Aunt Vanilla. And Grandma. And everyone. That night, after she went to bed, I called Vanilla. What are you doing? I asked as soon as she picked up. What now? She sighed. Don't talk to my daughter like I'm some unstable monster, I said. If you have something to say about me, say it to me. She laughed, a short, sharp sound. Wow. Paranoid much? I was comforting her. She said you've been shouting more. I told her you're just stressed, trying to be nice. You're welcome. My stomach twisted. I don't shout at her. I raise my voice sometimes, but... Oh my God, she cut in. Listen to yourself. You sound insane. This is what I mean when I tell Mom you're spiraling. You twist everything. Maybe you need help. Vanice. Professional help. I went silent. I mean it, she continued. You forget pickups, you snap at people. Now you're accusing me of brainwashing your kid? It's all in your head. You're the one creating drama. That sentence sat like a stone in my chest. It's all in your head. For a moment, she almost made me doubt myself. Was I overreacting? Was I really becoming the problem? When I tried to talk to Mom about it later, she sighed and rubbed her temples. You girls have always argued, she said. Vanilla helps a lot with the kids. Try to be grateful, okay? Not everyone has a sister who shows up like she does. I am grateful, I said. But she's crossing lines. She forged my signature, Mom. On a school form. Mom winced. Are you sure? Maybe you just forgot you signed something in a rush. The words punched me in the gut. They were the same ones Vanilla had used. Maybe you forgot. Maybe you're just tired. Maybe it's all in your head. I walked out of that house feeling more alone than I had felt even on the day Jessie and I signed our divorce papers. It was like everyone else had agreed on a version of me that I didn't recognize. Unstable, ungrateful, dramatic. And the more they repeated it, the harder it became to hold on to the truth that I wasn't the crazy one. The official fall didn't happen in a courtroom or a lawyer's office. It happened under fluorescent lights in the tiny nurse's room at my daughter's school, with cartoon animal posters on the walls and the sound of kids laughing in the hallway outside. It was a regular Thursday morning. I was at my desk at work, sipping lukewarm coffee, when my phone rang. The school's number flashed on the screen. My heart dropped immediately. Parents know that feeling. Hello. This is Vanice, I said. Hi, this is Mr. Harris, the principal, a male voice replied. Is this a good time to talk? Not really, I thought, but I said, yes, of course. Is everything okay? There was a small pause. Your daughter is physically okay, he said carefully. But she's very upset. We thought it would be best if you could come in. My grip tightened around the phone. What happened? It's about the hair and costume for the play, he said. We were under the impression you had approved the change, but your daughter is now saying you didn't know. I think it's better if we discuss this in person. My veins went cold. I'll be there in 15 minutes, I said, already standing up, my chair skidding back behind me. I don't remember much about the drive, just the way my hands shook on the steering wheel and how every red light felt like a personal attack. When I finally pulled into the school parking lot, I saw a familiar car already there. Vanilla's. Inside, the front office felt strangely quiet. A few parents sat in the chairs against the wall, pretending not to stare, but their eyes followed me anyway. The receptionist gave me a nervous smile. Mr. Harris is waiting in the nurse's room, she said. Right this way. When I pushed open the door, the first thing I saw was my daughter. She was sitting on the small cushioned bench, hugging her knees to her chest. Her face was red and blotchy from crying. And her hair. Her hair was gone. Her head had been shaved almost completely, just a faint shadow of brown left like a ghost of what used to be there. Little strands of hair still clung to her shoulders and the collar of her shirt. For a second, my brain refused to understand what my eyes were seeing. Then my chest exploded with a pain so sharp I had to grab the doorframe to stay standing. Vive Aline, I whispered. She looked up at me, and the expression in her eyes is something I will never be able to erase from my memory. Hurt. Confusion. Betrayal. Mom, she choked out. Why didn't you tell me? I stumbled forward and dropped to my knees in front of her. Tell you what? I asked, my voice breaking. Baby, what did they do to you? She agreed, another voice said from the corner of the room. I turned. Vanilla was standing there with her arms crossed, trying to look calm, but there was something too stiff about her posture. Like she knew she was standing on thin ice and didn't want anyone to see that she felt it. She's being dramatic, Vanilla added, nodding toward my daughter. You signed the consent form, remember? Mr. Harris cleared his throat. We have the form on file, he said gently. It does have your signature, Ms. Collins. Your sister brought it in last week. I stared at him, then at her, then back at my daughter's bare head. My what? I whispered. Vanilla stepped closer, pulling a folded paper from her bag. She held it out toward me with a fake calm I could see right through. You were just in a hurry, she said smoothly. You were rushing out of Mom's house, remember? I told you Ms. Taylor was thinking about a bolder look, and you said, yeah, whatever. Do what you have to do, I trust you. You signed the form. I kept a copy. My fingers wouldn't close around the paper. I felt like I was watching someone else's life in slow motion. That's not what happened, I finally managed to say, my voice hoarse. I never agreed to this. I never signed anything like that knowingly. My daughter's voice cut in, small and shaking. So you didn't know? She asked. You didn't tell them to do this? I turned to her immediately. No, I said, tears blurring my vision. No, baby. I would never. I love your hair, remember? We just talked about keeping it simple. But Aunt Vanilla said you wanted this, she cried. She said real actresses have to be brave. She said you were finally taking the play seriously. My heart broke clean in half. Mr. Harris cleared his throat again, looking incredibly uncomfortable. Regardless of the miscommunication, the fact is the change has been made, he said. Some of the staff did express concern, but with the consent form on file, we had to assume it was allowed. I want to see that form, I said quietly, my voice low but shaking. He nodded and stepped out to print it. The moment the door closed, I turned to Vanilla. What have you done? I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper. She lifted her chin. Calm down. It's just hair. It'll grow back. You're the one always saying your daughter should follow her dreams. This just proves she's committed. My hands started to shake. You took away her choice, I said. You didn't ask her. You didn't ask me. You lied. Vanilla's eyes flashed. I asked her, she snapped. She hesitated like a baby. Someone had to push her to be brave. She'll thank me later when she gets the loudest applause. My daughter let out a small, broken sob. I reached for her, but she flinched, just slightly, like she didn't know who to believe anymore. And that, somehow, hurt even more than seeing her shaved head. When Mr. Harris came back in and handed me the printed form, my worst fear was confirmed. It was the same one I'd seen in that email. My name, my fake signature. Almost perfect. Almost. We may also have to file an incident report, he said carefully. There's a question of judgment here, Ms. Collins. Some parents might feel this was extreme. We need to make sure everything is in order for your daughter's welfare. A welfare check. An incident report. Words that immediately translated in my head into, they might think I'm unfit. They might think I allowed this. They might use this against me. Vanilla must have sensed exactly what I was thinking, because she gave a small, sympathetic shake of her head and said, Look, if she wants, I can talk to the other parents. I'll tell them it was a joint decision. You've just been overwhelmed. You're under a lot of stress. Nobody has to know you're regretting it now. She said it like she was offering me a lifeline. But every word wrapped around my neck like a rope. In that cramped nurse's room, with my daughter crying and strands of her hair on the floor, everyone was looking at me. The mother who supposedly agreed to shave her child's head for a school play. And for the first time I realized that whatever game my sister was playing, she'd just taken it to a level where my role as a mother, my bond with my own child, was being ripped right out of my hands in front of my eyes. I didn't know it then, but that day was the day they started to officially question my judgment. That was the day in that small schoolroom that they erased my name as the safe parent in people's minds, and replaced it with a cruel label I knew I didn't deserve. After my daughter got the lead role in the school play, my sister Vanilla grew more jealous, forged my signature on a consent form, and had the school shave my daughter's head for authenticity. The school believed I had approved it, and my own child didn't know who to believe anymore. The week after the shaving incident felt like being trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. At home, every time my daughter walked past a mirror, she flinched. She started wearing hoodies with the hood pulled up, even inside the house. At school, she begged me to let her stay home, just one more day. I let her stay home twice, but I couldn't keep her out forever. People stared. Of course they did. A 9-year-old girl who used to have long hair suddenly walking around with a shaved head right before the school play? In a small town like ours, it was instant gossip fuel. In the grocery store, I heard whispers right behind me. Did you hear? Her mom did it for the play. Some method acting thing. Poor kid. That's extreme. I'd never do that to my child. I pretended not to hear, but each sentence felt like a slap. At night, when my daughter finally fell asleep, I sat in the living room with my laptop open, the printed consent form lying beside me on the coffee table. I kept comparing the signature on the form to my real signature on old documents. They looked so similar. So close. The curve of the V, the angle of the S at the end. I knew I hadn't signed it. But would anyone else believe me? A few days later, I got an email from the local child welfare office. It was polite, formal, and terrifying. We have received a report related to a recent incident at your daughter's school involving a drastic physical appearance change. We would like to schedule a home visit to talk with you and your daughter to make sure everything is okay. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. They thought I might be the problem. My stomach twisted so hard I thought I might throw up. I immediately called the number listed at the bottom of the email. A calm female voice answered. This is Ms. Green, she said. How can I help you? Hi, this is Vanice. The mother mentioned in the email, I said, my voice shaking. I want you to know I did not agree to that haircut. I did not tell them to shave my daughter's head. My sister forged my signature. I can prove it. I have emails. Okay, Ms. Green said gently, cutting in. Take a deep breath. I hear you. We're not coming to accuse you of anything. We just need to understand what happened and make sure your daughter feels safe. That's all. Tears filled my eyes. She doesn't feel safe, I said. Not at school, not with my sister. And now everyone thinks I'm the one who did this to her. We'll talk through everything when we meet, she replied. For now, please know, we're not your enemy. We're here to make sure the right adults are held responsible, not to make anything worse. Her tone was so steady and sincere that some part of the panic loosened in my chest. We scheduled the home visit for the following Monday. I hung up, wiped my face, and realized my hands weren't shaking as badly as before. It was the smallest thing, but it was the first time since this whole mess started that I felt like maybe, just maybe, someone might actually listen to my side. The home visit day, my tiny living room looked cleaner than it had in months. I scrubbed every surface, arranged the framed pictures on the shelf so they showed as many happy moments as possible, and made sure there were snacks on the table that my daughter actually liked. I wanted Ms. Green to see our real life, not the twisted version Vanilla liked to hint at, some chaotic, unstable home where I screamed all day and forgot to feed my child. When Ms. Green arrived, she was dressed simply in a dark blazer and jeans, carrying a folder and a small notebook. Her eyes were kind but sharp, the type that didn't miss much. "Thank you for letting me come," she said, stepping inside. "Thank you for coming," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. We sat on the couch, and after a few questions about daily routines, school schedules, and basic things, she asked to speak with my daughter alone for a bit. I agreed, even though every part of me wanted to stay right there and make sure nothing else was twisted against me. I watched from the kitchen doorway as Ms. Green knelt down to my daughter's level, speaking softly. My daughter pulled her hood back slowly, showing her shaved head. "Do you know why I'm here?" Ms. Green asked gently. My daughter nodded, tears already welling up. "Because of my hair," she whispered. "I want to hear it from you," Ms. Green said. "From the beginning. Who told you it was happening? And what did they say?" My daughter took a shaky breath. "Aunt Vanilla said." She paused, chewing her lip. "She said Mom wanted me to prove I was serious about acting. That real actresses have to be brave. She said Mom signed the paper but she was too busy and stressed to explain it to me." My heart broke all over again hearing it said out loud like that. "So you thought your mom wanted this?" Ms. Green asked. My daughter nodded hard. "I thought if I said no, Mom would be disappointed. I didn't want Mom to think I was weak. But then, when they started shaving my hair, I got scared. I asked if we could stop. Aunt Vanilla told me it was too late. She said if I cried, everyone would think I was a baby and Ms. Taylor would regret giving me the lead." Her small shoulders shook. Ms. Green handed her a tissue. "And what did your mom say when she saw you?" she asked. My daughter sniffed. "She cried," she said softly. "She hugged me and said she didn't know. She said she would never have agreed. She was angry. Really angry. At Aunt Vanilla." "And do you believe her?" Ms. Green asked. There was a long pause. My daughter curled her fingers together, staring at her hands. Then she nodded slowly. "Yes," she whispered. "When I saw her face, I knew she didn't know. She looked surprised. Like hurt surprised. Not fake surprised." My chest loosened just a bit. Ms. Green smiled gently. "Thank you for telling me," she said. "You were very brave. I'm going to talk with your mom now, okay? If you need anything, you can call me. Here." She handed my daughter a small business card. "You can even just draw me a picture and ask your mom to send it. I'll get it." After they wrapped up, Ms. Green joined me at the kitchen table. "I believe you," she said quietly, before I could even start pleading my case again. "And more importantly, I believe your daughter." The relief hit me so hard I had to put my hand over my mouth for a second. "I have proof," I said once I could speak. I pulled out the folder and laid it on the table. This is the email from Ms. Taylor asking me to confirm any bold transformation. I said no. This is the scan of the consent form the school had on file. And this, I pulled out another page, is a copy of my signature from the school registration packet from 2 years ago. She studied the papers carefully, line by line. The signatures are very similar, she said. But there are differences. The way yours curls here, the pressure here. She pointed at the printed form. Someone practiced this. A lot. I know who, I said quietly. She met my eyes. We can't jump to legal conclusions yet, she said. But here's what we can do. I can write a report that clearly states your daughter believed this was approved by her aunt, not by you. I can recommend that your sister not be allowed to make school-related decisions or sign any documents as if she were a guardian. And I can strongly suggest the school review their consent procedures. And the incident report? I asked, voice small. The one making it look like I'm unstable. Ms. Green smiled faintly. That's going to look very different once my report is in the file, she said. You're not out of the woods yet. People talk. Rumors spread. But on paper, we can start fixing that. It wasn't everything. But it was the first real step up from rock bottom. Life didn't magically get better after that, but something inside me shifted. I stopped treating myself like I was on trial in my own life. I started collecting things. Tiny things. Little pieces of truth that might matter later. Every text message from Vanilla that sounded controlling or manipulative, I screenshotted and backed up. Every email from the school that mentioned, as per conversation with your sister, I printed and clipped into a folder. I wrote down dates, times, small details I used to shrug off. I also started saying, no, more often. No, you can't pick her up today. I've arranged a carpool with another parent. No, I don't want you talking to her alone about the play. No, you don't get to tell people I approved anything. Vanilla didn't like that. One evening when I came to Mom's house to drop off some groceries, I walked in on Vanilla speaking to my mom in that same soft, poisonous tone she used with my daughter. She's getting worse, Mom, Vanilla was saying. First the divorce, now this. She's paranoid. She thinks everyone is out to get her. What if something really happens to that kid because of her instability? My stomach turned. And then Ms. Green shows up, Vanilla continued. You know those people don't just disappear. Once they're involved, they're involved. If Jesse finds out, he might have a case to take custody. Maybe that's for the best. I stepped into the room. If Jesse finds out what? I asked coldly. Both of them jumped. Nothing, Mom said quickly. We were just. Oh, don't pretend, I cut in. I looked straight at Vanilla. Are you talking to my ex-husband about this? She rolled her eyes. Relax. He has a right to know if his child is in a dangerous environment. My vision blurred around the edges. Dangerous, I repeated. You shaved her head, forged my signature, lied to the school, and somehow I'm the danger? She smiled slightly. You're unstable. That's the danger. Enough, Mom snapped suddenly, louder than I'd heard her speak in a long time. We both blinked at her. You're both my daughters. Stop tearing each other apart like this in front of me. I took a deep breath. I'm not the one tearing anyone apart, I said quietly. But I'm done letting my life be rewritten by people who think manipulation is love. I turned to leave, then paused and looked back at Vanilla. If Jesse tries anything, I said, tell him the child welfare report doesn't say what you think it says. And neither will the school's new file once everything is updated. For the first time, I saw a flicker of something in her eyes that looked a lot like doubt. It was small. But it was there. Slowly, a new routine started to form. I shifted my work schedule so I could pick up my daughter myself most days. When I couldn't, I arranged carpools with a couple of parents whose kids were also in the play. One of them, a calm woman named Rachel, became a quiet support system for me. She'd send quick check-in messages, like, "Val line did great in rehearsal today," or "She laughed so hard at lunch when Bella dropped a juice." She didn't treat me like a monster. She just treated me like another mom. The play rehearsals continued, even with my daughter's shaved head. Ms. Taylor came up with a simple headband and scarf style that actually looked intentional, almost theatrical. She told my daughter, "We're not hiding what happened. We're turning it into part of the costume. You still deserve to shine." My daughter, slowly, started to stand a little straighter again. She still had bad days. Days when she cried because someone had whispered, "Baldy," under their breath in the hallway. Days when she asked, "Do you think my hair will be long again by the time I'm a teenager?" But she also had days when she laughed, and days when she practiced a monologue in front of the mirror, scarf and all. One Saturday, after a particularly long rehearsal, Ms. Taylor pulled me aside. "I'm really sorry about everything that happened," she said. "I should have insisted on hearing directly from you earlier. I trusted the form too much." "You couldn't have known," I said. "You had a form on file. You did what schools do." She bit her lip. "Still," she said, "I've been thinking. I keep getting the feeling your sister likes to be in the spotlight, even when she's not technically on stage." I looked at her sharply. "What do you mean?" She glanced around to make sure no one else was listening. "The day your daughter's hair was shaved, some of the other staff told me your sister insisted on being there. She told them you were too emotional and might ruin the process for your daughter. They said she was weirdly excited. One of the student helpers even said she heard her whisper, 'Let's see her get all the attention now.'" My heart pounded. "Do you have that in writing? Anyone willing to say that officially?" She hesitated. "Maybe," she said. "The student is scared. She doesn't want drama." But one of our staff, Mr. Finch, filed a concern note that day. The administration didn't act on it because of the signed form. But the note exists. I've seen it. If the district opens a formal review, that note is going to matter. "What do you mean, if?" I asked. She took a deep breath. "Some parents are talking about asking for a policy review on who's allowed to authorize physical changes to students," she said. "If this goes to a meeting, you'll want that note. And any other proof you have." That night, I added Mr. Finch's note to my mental list of plants that might become very important later. The more I gathered, the more one thought started forming in my head, clear and sharp. If Vanilla could forge my signature once, she could do it again. If she could use my daughter's hair to control the narrative, she could use anything. I was done playing defense. It was time to prepare for a confrontation on my terms. The real turning point came about 3 months after the incident, a few weeks after the play itself. Yes, my daughter went on stage with a shaved head and a simple scarf. Yes, she nailed the performance. Yes, she got a standing ovation. And yes, Vanilla claimed credit for making her brave, to anyone who would listen. That part still makes me sick. One evening, I got a message from an unknown number. "Hi. You don't know me, but I know your sister. My name is Amy. Can we talk?" I almost ignored it, assuming it was spam. But something made me ask. "About what?" The answer came quickly. "About what she said she'd do to put you in your place after the hair thing. And about the way she practiced your signature on napkins for weeks before she went to the school." My blood ran cold. I agreed to meet Amy at a small cafe across town. When I walked in, I saw a woman in her 30s, hair pulled back, wearing a simple sweater, looking nervous. She stood as I approached. "You're Vanice?" she asked. I nodded. "You're friends with Vanilla?" "Not anymore," she said with a tight smile. "We used to work together at the salon. She used to come in on her days off and vent about you. At first I thought it was just normal sister stuff. But then it started to sound worrying." We sat down, and she pulled out her phone. "She bragged," Amy said quietly. That's why I'm here. She bragged about the shaved head thing, like it was some genius move. She said, everyone will think she's the crazy one, not me. Once the form is filed, they'll have to believe I'm just helping. My stomach twisted. Did she say she forged my signature? I asked. Yes, Amy said simply. She asked me once if I thought the S in your name looked more believable if it curled up or down. She even showed me photos of random documents with your name. I told her it was a bad idea. She laughed. She said, relax, it's just for a school thing. It's not like I'm stealing a house. Do you have proof? I whispered, afraid of the answer. Amy nodded slowly and opened her messages. She scrolled, then turned the phone toward me. There it was. A series of texts from months ago. Vanilla. Should I make the V taller? Vanilla. Look, it's getting close, right? Face with tears of joy. Amy. You're scaring me. Vanilla. Relax, it's just a permission form. Once it's filed, everyone will think SHE did it, not me. Maybe then people will stop worshipping Perfect Sister. Under that last message was a voice note icon. I didn't know how to feel about this at the time, Amy said. I saved the messages because it freaked me out. When I heard that your daughter's hair was shaved and people were blaming you, I felt sick. I tried to convince myself it was none of my business. But then I heard there might be a policy meeting at the school, and I couldn't stay quiet anymore. Can you send those to me? I asked, barely breathing. She nodded. I'll also go on record if I have to, she said. I don't like drama, but I like injustice even less. That night, for the first time since all this began, I slept with the smallest smile on my face. Because now I had more than suspicion. More than gut feelings. More than my daughter's hurt memories. I had Vanilla's own words. And I had someone willing to stand beside me when I finally put those words where they needed to be seen. The school district eventually announced a special meeting. They said it was about reviewing consent policies and safeguarding student welfare, but everyone in town knew what had triggered it. The shaved head incident had become something people referred to simply as, what happened to that girl in the play? That girl was my daughter. The principal's office couldn't hold everyone, so they used the conference room beside it. Parents, teachers, and a few board members were there. Chairs lined the room, some people stood along the walls. Papers rustled, voices buzzed. When I walked in with my daughter, I felt 100 eyes land on us. She squeezed my hand tightly. This time, she wasn't hiding. Her hair had started to grow back in a soft fuzz, and she wore a simple headband that didn't try to cover it. Are you sure? She whispered. I squeezed her hand back. We're not here to be ashamed, I said quietly. We're here to tell the truth. We sat near the front. A few minutes later, Vanilla walked in with Bella and Mom. Vanilla looked confident, almost smug, her lipstick perfectly applied, her hair in perfect waves. She wore a blazer over a bright blouse, like she was attending some kind of fashion-forward job interview. She gave me a quick, tight smile that didn't reach her eyes, then took a seat across the room. Mr. Harris opened the meeting. We're here to review what happened in the case of the student whose hair was drastically altered for a school production, he said, voice measured. We need to make sure our procedures protect our students and respect parental rights. I'd like to start by having a brief summary of events placed on record. As he spoke, Ms. Green, who was also there, caught my eye from the side of the room and gave a small nod. He began to outline the timeline, the consent form received, the procedure carried out, the later claim by the parent that she had not approved it. When he reached the part about the confusion around guardianship, he paused. At this point, he said, we believed we had a valid consent form signed by the mother, brought in by the student's aunt. However, new information has come to light that makes this less clear. Whispers rippled through the room. Vanilla sat up straighter, her eyes narrowing. Mr. Harris gestured toward me. Ms. Collins, would you like to speak? He asked. My heart pounded, but I stood up. My name is Vanis, I said, clearing my throat. I'm the mother of the girl in question, my daughter, Valline. I took a breath and spoke into the room full of people who'd whispered about me for months. When this happened, I said, most of you only heard one version of the story, that I agreed to have my 9-year-old's head shaved for a school play, that I signed a form and then changed my mind, that I was unstable or overdramatic. A few faces shifted, guilty. That version was never true, I continued. I never agreed. I never knowingly signed that form. When I saw my daughter in the nurse's room with her hair gone, it was the first time I knew anything about it. Someone in the back cleared their throat uncomfortably. I held up a folder. First, I said, this is an email from Ms. Taylor, the play director, sent before the shaving. In it, she asks me directly if I'm comfortable with any bold transformation for my daughter's hair. I replied that I was not, and that I preferred something simple. The school has that on file. Mr. Harris nodded. We have verified that email exchange, he confirmed. Second, I said, pulling out another paper. This is the consent form on file with the school. It has my name and a signature that looks very much like mine. But it isn't mine. It was brought in by my sister. I could feel Vanilla's eyes burning into the side of my face. Third, I continued, this is a copy of my actual signature from the original school registration packet. When compared by professionals, there are clear differences. I've shared this with Ms. Green, who has included those findings in her report. Ms. Green lifted her head. That's correct, she said calmly. There are enough inconsistencies to raise serious questions about the authenticity of the consent form. More whispers. A few parents looked at Vanilla. And finally, I said, feeling my voice steady, I have messages from someone who used to work with my sister. Messages where my sister practiced my signature and bragged about how everyone will think she did it, not me, once the form was filed. I nodded at Amy, who sat a few rows back. She stood slowly, face pale but determined. I'm Amy, she said. I worked with Vanilla at a salon. I have the messages she's talking about, and I'm willing to share them with the district and, if needed, law enforcement. I should have come forward sooner. I'm sorry I didn't. You could have heard a pin drop. Mr. Harris asked her to bring the messages forward. She handed him printed copies that had been prepared ahead of time, as well as a USB drive. He read a few lines silently, then passed them to Ms. Green and another board member. Their expressions grew darker with every second. At that point, the room wasn't whispering anymore. It was dead quiet. Vanilla, Mr. Harris said finally, turning toward her. Would you like to respond? Every eye in the room swung to her. For the first time since all of this began, I saw my sister look genuinely rattled. Her skin had gone pale, and she gripped her handbag so hard her knuckles were white. That's taken out of context, she said, voice shaking. I was joking. You know how sisters are. We tease each other. Amy is just bitter. She was fired from the salon. She has a grudge. Amy shook her head calmly. I resigned, she said. And I have no reason to hurt you. I'm here because what you did hurt a child. Mr. Harris leaned forward. Did you or did you not bring in this consent form? He asked Vanilla. And did you tell multiple staff members that the mother was too emotional to attend the haircut? I was helping, she snapped. Someone had to be the adult. Vanice is always late, always stressed. She didn't even want to come that day. I did what was best for the show. For the school. For the kid. For the kid. I repeated, my voice suddenly clear and strong. You told her that if she cried or refused, her teacher would regret giving her the lead. You turned her fear into a performance test. That isn't helping. That's control. Mr. Finch, the staff member Ms. Taylor had mentioned, raised his hand hesitantly from the side of the room. I filed a concern note that day, he said. I said I thought the aunt was overly enthusiastic about a drastic change, and that the child looked scared. I was told the consent form was valid, so it went nowhere. But the note is in the system. Mr. Harris nodded slowly, his jaw tightening. We've found it, he said. It should have been taken more seriously. All eyes went back to Vanilla. Her hands shook now, just like in the moment from my memory that had started this whole story. Everyone's ganging up on me, she said, voice rising. You're all acting like I'm some kind of monster. I just pushed her to be brave. Hair grows back. It was dramatic for the show. She got a standing ovation, didn't she? My daughter, who had been silent until then, stood up. Her voice wobbled, but it carried through the room. I would have rather had my hair and no standing ovation, she said. You could feel the weight of that sentence drop in the air. My sister went completely still. My daughter looked right at her and continued. You said Mom wanted it. You said I'd look like a real actress. But when I saw my mom's face, I knew you lied. Tears sprang to my eyes. Ms. Green cleared her throat. This isn't about punishing someone for a bad hairstyle, she said firmly. This is about an adult forging a parent's signature, manipulating a child, and interfering with the relationship between a mother and her daughter. That's serious. Very serious. One of the board members spoke up. Given this information, she said, I move that we formally restrict Vanilla from acting in any guardianship capacity at this school. She will not be allowed to sign any documents, make any decisions, or accompany the child to any procedure without the explicit presence and consent of the legal parent. Another board member added, and we need to report the forgery attempt to the appropriate authorities. This crosses a legal line. The vote was quick and unanimous. As the decision was read out loud, Vanilla's composure finally cracked. This is insane, she snapped, her voice breaking. You're all overreacting. It was just hair. Just a play. She's making me the villain because she can't handle being a single mom. You're all letting her dramatize everything. Nobody looked convinced. In that moment, in that packed room full of parents, teachers, and staff, the narrative silently shifted. For months, I had been the dramatic one, the unstable mom who might have gone too far for a school play. Now Vanilla was the adult who forged, manipulated, lied, and got caught. When the meeting finally ended, and people started filing out, I saw the way they looked at me and my daughter. Not like we were a problem. Like we were survivors of something they'd finally understood. Vanilla tried to push past us, but I stepped slightly to the side, blocking her path for just a second. She glared at me. You think you've won? She hissed quietly. I looked at her shaking hands, then at my daughter standing steady beside me. This was never a game, I said. You didn't just touch her hair. You tried to rewrite our whole story. And now everyone's seen who really did what. Her eyes filled with tears, of anger, not remorse. She shoved past me and left, Mom hurrying after her, calling her name. I didn't chase them. For the first time in a long time I didn't feel the urge to explain myself, or to fix everyone's feelings, or to apologize for taking up space. I just turned to my daughter and said, let's go home. Life after the meeting wasn't perfect. People still talked. Some took my side openly, some stayed neutral, a few still whispered about how family matters shouldn't have gone so public. That's life in a small town. But things were different where it mattered. On official records, I was no longer the mom who approved something cruel. I was the parent who fought to protect a child and exposed something wrong in the system. At school, staff greeted my daughter with extra kindness. Ms. Taylor made sure she knew she was welcome in every future production, hair length irrelevant. Mr. Harris introduced new consent procedures that required direct verification from parents, not just a signed piece of paper. Vanilla was banned from acting in any parental role at the school. She avoided me for months. When we eventually crossed paths at Mom's house on holidays, the air was tense. She spoke as little as possible, always to Mom or Bella, never to me. She paid a price. Her reputation among other parents took a serious hit. Some stopped inviting Bella to parties to avoid dealing with her. The salon gossip eventually caught up with her boss, who didn't like the idea of an employee associated with forging signatures and manipulating kids. She lost shifts, then clients, then her position entirely. She didn't go to jail. This wasn't some dramatic movie ending with handcuffs and courtroom speeches. But in our small world, the combination of official reports, restricted access, and social consequences was its own kind of sentence. My daughter's hair grew back. Slowly, soft at first, then fuller. One day, about a year later, she stood in front of the mirror, running her fingers through it. "Mom," she said. "Yeah," I replied from the doorway. "I think I want to cut it," she said thoughtfully. "Not short. Just, my choice this time. Like a shoulder-length bob. Something that feels like me." For a second, my heart lurched, remembering the last time scissors had been involved in any conversation about her head. But then I saw her face. Calm, curious, not panicked. "Your choice," I repeated, just to be sure. She smiled. "My choice," she said. "With your approval. Not anyone else's. And if I don't like it, I'll grow it out again. But I don't want to let what she did control me forever." I swallowed the lump in my throat and nodded. "Then we'll find a stylist who listens," I said. "And we'll go together. And if at any moment you feel uncomfortable, we stop. Deal?" "Deal," she said, her eyes shining. We went. She got the cut. It looked adorable. And more importantly, she walked out of that salon with her head held high, not lowered in shame. As for me, I learned to trust my instincts again. When something felt off, I didn't brush it aside. When people tried to twist my reality, I held on to what I knew to be true. When the voice in my head started to say, "Maybe you're overreacting," I answered, "Maybe, but maybe I'm protecting my child, and that matters more than other people's comfort." One night, months after the meeting, my daughter curled up next to me on the couch while we watched a movie. "Mom," she said quietly. "Yeah. Do you think Aunt Vanilla ever loved me? Like, real love?" The question stung. I thought about all the times Vanilla had bought her gifts, taken her for ice cream, bragged about her talent to other parents. I also thought about the day in the nurse's room, the lies, the manipulation, the way she'd used my daughter's fear for her own power trip. "I think," I said slowly, "that some people confuse love with control. They think if they can decide everything for you, it means they care. But that's not real love. Real love listens. Real love asks. Real love doesn't need to scare you into being brave." She was quiet for a moment. "Do you love me?" she asked, even though I knew she already knew the answer. "With my whole heart," I said. "Enough to fight people, even family, if they hurt you. Enough to admit when I'm wrong, and to change. Enough to protect your choices, not erase them." She smiled and snuggled closer. "Then I think I'm okay," she said softly. And in that moment, I realized something important. Vanilla had shaved my daughter's head trying to steal the spotlight, trying to rewrite our roles in each other's lives. But in the end, all she really did was reveal who she was, and who I was willing to be for my child. Now I know I was never the unstable one. I was just a mother who needed to remember that my voice mattered, too. From everything I went through, I learned that being too scared to make waves can sometimes be more dangerous than speaking up. Now I realize that we should never let anyone, no matter how close they are, use our children as tools for their jealousy or control. If you're in a situation like mine back then, please remember, protecting your child will always be more important than protecting someone else's image. If you've ever gone through something similar or you want to share your own story, write it in the comments below. Don't forget to share this story with your friends, like the video, and subscribe so you don't miss the next stories.